Welcome to the final insult from X2, making Sigma difficult. The worst thing is turning the battles into something frenetic doesn't necessarily stop them from being so tedious, especially the final form, which is longer than it usually is, and it's usually enough to put a man to sleep. The biggest problem with all three of the upcoming battles is basically how ludicrously quick each boss moves. Zero is exploitable as all hell, so bitching about him shouldn't count, but if you don't take the easy way out, the bastard attacks faster than any boss in the game, including Agile. Sigma's first form is lunacy. Surviving at all is based on continuously specific placement at all times, because there are too many variables and they all add together towards you getting trapped. The virus head, besides being as beyond explanation as it ever was, constitutes the biggest insult because you are at your greatest risk in the entire segment after you're done dragging yourself through 4 minutes of repetitive dribble. That'll be more of a testament to the viewer's patience than my own, but before we get there, the fight with Zero. When I say I don't exploit Zero, it's a bit of a stretch because you are manipulating him by definition during every second of the fight. Zero is one of the most predictable bosses in the game because he's the only boss who bases every single action on wherever X is at a given time, far more strictly than any other. Being right next to him triggers a dash, upon which finishing he'll immediately trigger another attack based on where you are when he stops. About a third of the screen away triggers a small mid-charge shot all the time, every time. This is the obvious exploit. As long as you stay in that proper position, you're perfectly safe. Zero never moves unless he's dashing, and he never dashes unless you're in certain spots. Otherwise, if you're any further from him, he'll use the 3-shot combo. The issue then, if you opt not to do it the easy way, isn't about getting caught off guard, it's falling out of the strict timing required throughout. Zero is a fast motherfucker. Every attack he uses is based on being too quick to simply sidestep. To safely dodge his now titular combo, you usually need to take to the walls. Immediately upon doing this, you'll be triggered to dash your way and pound debris into the air, catching you anyway. With the dash, this lends itself to a simple but strict pattern. Wall jump past his debris, shoot him while his back is turned, get to a wall, repeat. Without the dash, we need it to be a bit more creative, as you saw throughout this. Although Zero is unforgivingly fast, you can fuck with him in all sorts of ways. How I worked with him during this battle are just a few examples of plenty of patterns you can take to stay decently safe. Just make sure you can maintain them without slipping up, because you will pay for it. Sigma's first form is significantly more unwieldy than Zero. With the dash, nearly everything he does can be dealt with by outracing it, so there aren't any issues. Without the dash, Sigma is too quick to dodge on the fly. You need to be aware of where you are and where you have to be at all times. His basic trick is to slash towards you whenever you're on the ground, if he isn't using his electric orbs. This is obscenely quick. You need to basically be moving and on a wall within half a second or it's going to hit you, and there's no faking it out. After that, you're only safe when he wall jumps and teleports. Issue is, he doesn't always do this. Sometimes he abuses the fuck out of his orbs, which results in the single most bullshit situation in all three fights. He was a special sort of asshole with it this time. It's nearly impossible to guarantee avoiding seeing this at least once because there's no set timing to when he reappears and gets ready to slash at you again, and when he does, you get yourself to a wall regardless of your situation or you're fucked. Luckily, past the halfway point, things obviously become a cakewalk. He starts abusing a very delayed, easy to see coming attack, and he always switches up with electric orbs, which are a non-issue when he's away from the wall. Still, the first half of this fight is a lot more involved than it looks. I'm never where I don't absolutely need to be at any given time. By this point, you'll probably notice that there is a 5-minute discrepancy between here and the end of the video. You'll also notice there is in fact only one fight to fill that gap. You will then, at my behest, run screaming in the other direction because this is going to be brutally repetitive. I can't quite get what Capcom was going for with this boss, which is a statement I've uttered so many times that it doesn't hold much meaning anymore. Honestly though, he has more health than anything has a right to, follows a strict, short loop for the entirety of the battle, and if there was supposed to be a vestige of challenge to this, it's lost by the fact that the enemies give you health, frequently. Unfortunately, giving you a good laugh isn't translated too well in the no-dash version of this fight, which is just beyond me to try playing with. Keeping myself to this very precise rhythm at all times is necessary both to predictably avoid getting caught in a bad enemy combo and to keep this from being some 5-part odyssey. It allows me 2 shots for every loop, and more importantly, his orbs can never reach this high into the corner, and neither can his little epileptic episode where he spasms towards your position in an alarming fashion. The best part is, like Zero, what seems mindless is actually demanding. If you'll notice, at any point during which he's homing in on me, I am never sliding down the wall. Halting X for a fraction of a second too long means he won't be able to clear Sigma's head in time. It homes in more accurately and more quickly than you'd think. This results in a very picky mishmash of small half jumps and slides down the wall while waiting for Sigma to go about his shit. It's a small miracle no enemies can reach you during all of this, but even then, you'll notice some extremely close calls with his head from time to time, simply by virtue of the timing required being so rigid. Of course, it wouldn't be enough to call this such a monumental pain in the ass if he never pulled some sort of bullshit out before it's all said and done. After you started to question whether or not this is Schrödinger pulling the fast one on you, Sigma enters a different phase for his final 2 colors. He begins teleporting sporadically around the room. It is absolutely random whether or not he'll decide to spawn on top of you, in an arbitrary position around the room, or stop to perform one of the attacks from his previous pattern. This is, after just a few moments of realizing the amount of bullshit that can arise from bad combinations of it, unspeakably aggravating. Without the dash, there is a highly worrisome problem that pretty much defines the rest of the battle. X cannot walk fast enough to escape the materializing head when it decides to appear on top of him. Instead, you need to use the fact that during a jump, X travels slightly faster vertically than he does horizontally to clear the head's hitbox in time. Now, like the pattern we adhered to before this, it's not so much an issue of complexity as it is keeping strict attention at all times. This isn't the hardest thing in the world to time for yourself, but your window is a small one, and too early or too late will result in taking a hit. What pushes this phase so incredibly far beyond the first half is that there are numerous uncertainties that can crop up during it. If Sigma decides to appear in an arbitrary place on the screen instead of where X is, you need to jump to the rhythm anyway because you have no idea in advance what action he's going to take. More times than I care to count, I've jumped directly into Sigma because the asshole materialized directly in front of where I was moving instead of on top of me or some who gives a shit corner of the room. It almost happens in this battle at one point, and I only turn around in time by virtue of having to pay so much damn attention to your timing in the first place. That's one small benefit to all of these battles being so specific. They stop the tedium from slaughtering your attention span while playing. By far the worst of it is that he can enter an action from any cycle. If he wants to teleport 10 times without presenting an opportunity to hit him, he will. If he wants to catch you in the worst of ways by deciding to stop and shoot enemies at you while you're meekly hiding in a corner, he'll do that too. This battle becomes impossible to predict reliably because of its totally random nature, so your only hope is to react and adapt as well as you can. However, bad luck can still push things beyond you. If his 2 blue spears both turn into Triceratops enemies, for example, you are irreparably fucked. You don't have time to kill both before they fire on you, and because he'll usually start his laser attack immediately after, it's even more hopeless. There are countless other scenarios that can fuck you over that don't show up here. It all depends on what materializes and where he is when it does. This phase is also inevitably going to take forever because unlike with dashing, you have no opportunities to hit him in between teleports. You can only get a shot off when he's in the middle of another attack. I got to this point rarely enough, but even then, I lost plenty of attempts to horrible luck during it. Even in the aftermath of this successful segment, you can see how much you're basically relying on Sigma's kindness to get you through. When you combine that with all of the nonsense that comes before it, this is by a large margin the hardest Sigma fight to do in regards to this challenge. Harder than X3's in fact. Hopefully that kept this from being too anticlimactic, and that will in fact conclude the X2 No Dash challenge. We still have a hell of a way to go with X3, so until then, this is Hide of Beast ending 9.5 minutes of filler. See ya.